Keir Starmer's extraordinary article across the front page of the Sunday Telegraph today is a pitch, of course, for Conservative voters at the next general election. He's going to have to move the most enormous number of seats from Conservative to Labour, even to get a slim majority. I think he's going to have to get over 100, 150 more. He's going to have to get more seats than Tony Blair did when he got power, and he got this landslide. Keir Starmer is barely going to get a majority, even if so many seats go in his direction. And I suspect the Conservative Party have done their maths, and they think actually they could just hold on, and it is possible. But there is a sense in certainly in Question Time on Wednesday, of the life being sucked out of the Conservative Party, of despondency among backbench MPs and even frontbench cabinet ministers conceding that the next election is likely to be lost. And then after that amazing triumph at Prime Minister's Questions, where suddenly Keir Starmer discovered ridicule, and Rishi Sunak did not have the ammunition to reply, and indeed at one point answered a question that he hadn't even been asked. He was ill-prepared, he was inadequate, and this is probably measured by the hush behind him of Conservative MPs who should have been baying for success. They weren't. They're actually leaving the benches quietly. And in Keir Starmer's article this morning, he talks about Margaret Thatcher and Clement and Tony Blair. And he's saying these people have changed Britain. I think he's missing out Harold Wilson, and I think that's a foolish omission. Harold Wilson, he may not be one of Starmer's heroes, but he was a phenomenal prime minister and defined the 1960s in a way that is very difficult to imagine today. And I mean, he was a bit of a bumbler. He didn't achieve a great deal internationally. That was actually left to Edward Heath, I suppose. Edward Heath was the one who took us into the European Union. That was the big international change, and at the beginning of the 1970s, and decimalisation at the beginning of the 1970s. But it was Wilson who'd presided over that move from the 1950s into the 1960s, and Wilson who ushered in so much change. And I think he should be there. He should have been mentioned with Attlee as not only one of the people who produced change, but one of the people who was a vote winner. And he was a vote winner. Thatcher is rightly there. He says, I'm going to quote, "Every moment of meaningful change in modern British politics begins with the realisation that politics must act in service of the British people rather than dictating to them. Margaret Thatcher sought to drag Britain out of its stupor by letting loose our natural entrepreneurialism. Tony Blair reimagined a stale, outdated Labour Party into one that could seize the optimism of the late 1990s. A century ago, Clement Attlee wrote that Labour must be a party of duty and patriotism, not abstract theory. To build a new Jerusalem meant first casting off the mind-forged manacles. That lesson is as true today as it was then, the mind-forged manacles of William Blake." And he's right, but of course what he really wants to do is to let the readers realise these are all vote winners. and that he will, with humility, become the vote winner of the future, just as the Conservative Party at the moment is on a downward spiral. He compares it to the sinking Mary Rose, overburdened, incompetently handled, plunging into the depths. I don't know who wrote this, but it's very good. And I think Keir Starmer is right to appeal directly to the wobbling Conservative voter by writing in the Telegraph. It's not the first time he's done something like this. He did it in 2020 or something on VE Day. So he's not beyond where he criticised Labour. He's not beyond this sort of move. But I think he's trying to put the Jeremy Corbyn period aside. He's trying to reassure floating voters that he is not Jeremy Corbyn in disguise, and that Jeremy Corbyn, I think originally he said that Jeremy Corbyn was expelled from the Labour Party. In this article he says the whip was removed. But he's right that we must, the government is at our service. And there are difficult choices that every government has to make. It has to account for the money that is spent, and it has to make people feel better off. And I don't think by pursuing an agendum of vilifying a particular group like refugees, migrants, anybody who's foreign, I don't feel that's an appropriate way or a realistic way of making people feel better off. That's about blaming a group, and the blame game doesn't end well. Because in the end, people think, well, I can't blame this group. Let's find someone else to blame. Let's blame the government. I think Rishi Sunak is making mistake after mistake, partly because he's angry, and he's running around like a bull in a china shop. I know that instinct. Occasionally I have it myself. Like Rishi Sunak, I was also born on May the 12th, and that makes both of us Toryans. But I think when we look at the role of the Prime Minister and the role of government, it shouldn't be reduced to a bit of bull.